Days like today are a rare commodity. We've just had a terribly wet winter, and that's why we've been offline for a while. Terribly wet winter. We've had record river levels. There's been very few, if any, fishable days, and it's the second day of the trout season. And I'm here on the River Tees. There's snow on the hills around me on the Pennines right now as I speak, but it's a stunning, stunning day. Bright sunshine. Not ideal for fishing, of course, but we never let that stop us. On a beautiful day like today, we like to be out and enjoying the scenery and the river. My wife Nellie, who's filming, and myself, we just love to be out on days like this. It's fabulous. And because there's not much happening in terms of fly life, or at the moment, I'm hoping, I've seen one or two olives trickle off, nothing rising at all. And because it's March, we might get a hatch of the legendary March brown. This river does have March browns. Many rivers, unfortunately, they're now absent, but this river's so clean that it keeps March browns, and there's a good hatch of March browns. So hopefully we'll film some hatching March browns and maybe get some action on the dry fly. That's a big hope. But what we're going to do at the moment is fish opportunistically, and I'm going to use the duo, which is combining a dry fly and a nymph at the same time. And the dry fly I'm going to be using is this one. It's a bit tatty and untidy, but don't worry, the fish don't mind that. It's based very loosely on Altroth's legendary elk hair caddis, and I call this the life jacket elk hair caddis because it basically wears a very buoyant underbody, which is Tiemco dry fly wing, and a water repellent dubbing, which is Doug Swisher's gecko hair, and so it's very, very water repellent, and for that it's perfect for this job. Some people like to use a clink hammer for this, and I've got nothing against the clink hammer. It's a great fly, but with this fly I can use it all day. I've used it on 50 plus fish days, and it will stay afloat all day. Of course, I've got to gink it. Before I start to fish, I will put on a little bit of gink onto the body around the fly, and I don't mind putting it on the wing. If it's a CDC fly, don't put the gink on CDC, but this is elk hair, yearling elk hair, and I'll put it on the fly. This fly is available at onstreamguide.com, and I've found it very, very effective, even on days like this where there's no fish rising, because it's got properties a little like a stimulator. Fish will come up and have a go at it. Now, I fish it on a small dropper precisely for that reason, and also it's on a barbless hook. Some people tie off the hook shank or tie off a loop that's tied into the pattern. I actually fish this on a small dropper because it takes a lot of fish in its own right, and if you're fishing the duo correctly, you should take fish on both the dry fly and the nymph. I've got about 2 feet of depth down to a nymph, which is a bead head. It's a 2mm bead-headed nymph, and it's got a quill body and a little flashback, and it broadly imitates the olives, the large dark olives, and the March brown nymphs, which are basically agile darter nymphs, and this imitates those fairly well. And hopefully, even though it's probably going to be quite tough today, it's early season, the fish aren't really feeding yet, we should see 1 or 2 fish caught on the nymph, and if I'm lucky, maybe 1 or 2 on the dry fly. So it's a gorgeous day, and without further ado, we'll start. I'll just complete the setup for those of you that are interested. This is my trusty Sage Lightline 389. In my opinion, probably one of the best stream trout rods ever made. To the end of this 2-weight line, I've got a 5.5 foot onstreamguide.com furred leader, and this aids presentation, it aids turnover, and it helps me keep the dry fly drag free, which is very important when you're fishing this technique. And as I'll demonstrate, and hopefully you'll watch, by working upstream, not at too great a distance, you can catch 1 or 2 fish. So I'll give it a go right now. Life jacket caddis, fish came from nowhere. Beautiful, beautiful. Early season, March day. 2 or 3 casts with that life jacket caddis I was just explaining. That fish came, just fishing that duo there, and it's a beautiful day to be on the river. That life jacket caddis, that very buoyant duo dry fly, was used to good effect there. I was just stating earlier that we've seen a few olives start to hatch, so there might be 1 or 2 fish moving. Not seen any fish rise, but a fly of this quality will often pull up a wild trout like that in that type of water. And it's nice to catch, start of the new season, catching fish on the duo dry fly like that. It's just fantastic. And here he is, beautiful little trout, beautiful wild little brown trout. Whoops. And you just see that barbless hook in the scissors, that life jacket caddis, and that will come straight out in a second. He wants to go. Come on, my friend. Beautiful, beautiful, stunning wild brown trout on the duo dry fly, that life jacket LK caddis, and it's a beautiful March day. Still very cold, there's snow on the tops, just a few flies hatching, and using that duo technique there, the dry fly and the nymph, getting the best of both worlds. And that fish just came from nowhere, saw the dry fly and decided he was going to have it, which is the beauty of this life jacket caddis that I use as a duo fly. Here on the tees, it's the first, second day of the season, and there's nothing hatching, and so we're going to use alternative techniques. duo, I'm using a new fly called the Life Jacket Caddis, which is available on the website, onstreamguide.com. And this is a fantastic dry fly, and just seconds before I caught this fish, which was suspended on the dry fly under the nymph, I had a fish take the dry fly. And as I say, it's very early season. As you can see, it's cold. There's still snow on the mountains, but thanks to using these alternative techniques, today is going to be the duo and deep nymphs. We're still managing to catch these pretty wild fish, and it's nice to christen the new season with these beautiful wild little trout. That's taken the quill olive nymph, beautiful wild little fish. And that's what I'm doing, fishing up the creases, suspending the nymph under the Life Jacket Caddis. As you can see, a depth of about 14-18 inches. And when that fly dips under the surface, hopefully there's a lively trout on. Well, as I said this morning, we started on the duo in the late morning. There was nothing rising, nothing happening, but we were fishing opportunistically, and we caught fish on both the dry fly on the duo and the nymph. And as I predicted, behind me now there are just one or two fish, very occasionally topping to March browns. Now this type of targeted dry fly fishing is actually quite difficult. I'm using a heavier rod for this. This is a 4-weight, which by my standards is a bit of a sledgehammer, because I need to cast all the way across this very deep section of river. The fish tend to rise over the far side, tends to be quite difficult, and I'm going to have to wade quite deep, so I'm using a heavier line to get the extra distance I require. The type of fly I'm going to use is very good in a March brown hatch. Very often when fish are in a March brown hatch, they're not actually taking the dun on the surface, but they're taking the emerging insect, which is basically stuck or hanging just beneath the surface film. So what I'm using is a quill-bodied deer hair emerger, although the hair isn't deer hair, in this case it's yearling elk. And the quill body coupled with the yearling elk gives a very nice impression to the fish of a struggling insect that's stuck in the surface film. And hopefully, as I demonstrate, although the hatch is very sparse and the rises are few and far between, I hope I can demonstrate the fly working, catching one or two fish. So I'll get into position now and have a go with a dry fly. I'll just explain the outfit. As I said, this is also a Sage, a VPS Light, 4-weight, 9 feet. I've got a furled leader of about 5 feet, an onstreamguide.com furled leader, and about 5 feet of 5X tippet. This is Orvis Super Strong. And I'll degrease the 12 inches of fly using a Fuller's Earth mixture to get the fly, the tippet to sink. So it's especially important on a day like this, where it's very bright, that we get the tippet to sit under the surface. It also prevents the fly dragging. So, as I said, the hatch is very sparse. There's only 1 or 2 fish moving, but we'll get into position and see if we can get one out for the camera. beautiful, beautiful March day. There's a few March browns coming off. As I said earlier, I was fortunate enough to see a hatch, and I'll show you this emerging deer hair pattern, which is very effective for these beautiful rising wild brown trout. Stunning day. Second, third day of the season, one or two fish rising to these March browns, and I got that fish with the first good cover. One or two more moving and some better fish, so let's carry on. Off we go. Targeted dry fly fishing doesn't get any better. Spotting those rising fish, then targeting them on the dries. Another beautiful wild trout. This fantastic spring sunshine. Lovely March brown hatch. There's a couple of big fish amongst these. I'll see if I can get into those. And the fish really wanted that fly. Actually taking it down. Nice wild trout. Game of patience, spotting the fish, getting a good cover, getting in position, and the fish, as you've seen, the fish take the fly. And if the camera can zoom in now, you will see the March browns coming down the river. Across that river. One fish rising there that was very difficult to cover all the way across. Lovely being able to come out in these early spring days, fish these March brown hatches and catch these tremendous wild brown trout and dry flies. Doesn't get better than this. Phenomenal. What a beautiful day. As I said, the hatch is very sparse. Just one or two fish rising. By picking them off, we're able to get good sport. Fantastic. the day on duo, caught fish on the dry fly and the nymph, and then as the days progressed there was a very sparse hatch of March browns. And this is a nice wild trout. We'll see how well conditioned he is. Survived the winter. It's a tough environment for trout, these freestone rivers. They're not fish dense and you have to work for every fish. So it's beautiful to be able to come out on a day like this and to catch fish using targeted dry flies. That took the fly I showed you earlier. That quill emerger, and I saw him rise and we repositioned ourselves, and the first good cover I got on the fish he took now. He's showing some damage from being overwintered, so I'll handle this fish very carefully and get him back. It's a nice sized fish, but he's got a damaged tail, so we'll get him back as quickly as possible. Barbless hooks, of course. And he's a nice sized trout. Just take that hook out while he's in the net because he'll be a bit lively. I don't want him to shoot off. Yeah, the hook's out, no problem. Oh, there we go. Nice wild trout.
Look.
And we'll get him back into the water as soon as possible. Beautiful fish. He's not in bad condition, although he's got a damaged tail. And back he goes. Beautiful, beautiful trout. And it's nice to come out on these very cold days in early spring. It's March and it's very cold. There's still snow on the mountains, but we've still had an enjoyable day's sport. We've adapted our techniques to suit the conditions. We started on the duo, we had a fish on the dry, we had a fish on the nymphs, and we saw a few fish rise in a very sparse hatch of March browns, and we managed to pick off 2 or 3 fish on the dry flies. It's beautiful fishing and it's a fantastic day to be out, and I hope you've enjoyed it.